Most companies waste a lot of money on data enrichment before they even realize it, right? So they take a messy CRM data, plug it into an enrichment tool, and end up paying a lot of money to enrich, you could say, dead companies, contacts, and records that were never going to buy, right? But there is a phase that happens before any of that, right? And that phase decides whether every dollar you spend after it is used well or wasted, right? And it's called data ingestion, right? And in this video I'm going to show you exactly like how we pool and segment CRM data for one of our clients, right? So let's get into it. Quick context if you are just landing on this video. This is a part of a series where I'm breaking down a real project where like how we have helped one of our clients clean their CRM and turn it into a GTM enrich GTM engine, right? So in the first video I walked through the whole, you could say, system at a high level, right? So if you haven't seen that, I will link it up here, right? So this whole project runs on the four phases, right? Phase one is the data ingestion, right, where we are ingesting all of the data from the export from the CRM, right? And then phase two, clean and enrich. In phase three, we are doing the time mapping, right? And in the last phase, we are doing the HubSpot import, right? So today is all about phase one, which is like data ingestion, right? And the goal of this phase is to like get everything into clean centralized table and prioritize what records we need to enrich before a single dollar goes towards enrichment, right? So now in this phase there are three parts to it, right? In the first part we are going to export all of the data from our CRM, right? And then in the second part we are going to ingest or import this data into a clay table, right, which I call it unified master table, right? And then in the third part we are going to use the segmentation framework to segment these records, right? Now let's start with the export, right? So our client was on, we could say, Act CRM, right? Now if you have never seen it, Act CRM is one of those older legacy CRMs that a lot of established B2B companies have been running for years, right? So our client had roughly, I guess, 20,000 contacts, right? And 10,000 plus companies, right? So years of data their sales team has accumulated, right? Now at this stage, we are just going to export everything from the Act CRM. We are not going to clean anything, right? We want a complete raw snapshot of all the records because you cannot always tell what is junk until you have analyzed it properly, right? So cleaning will happen in the later phase in phase two, right? So right now the job is to get everything out, right? Now, so here we export both objects, which is company records and the contact records from the, you could say, CRM in a CSV form, right? Now here are few things you need to remember when you are exporting data from any CRM, right? So first, export companies and contacts separately so that you can keep the relationship between them cleaner, right? Second thing, pull every field that you have in your CRM, right? So even the ones that look useless. Of course, you can ignore them later, right? And then third, note how the CRM handles the link between the companies and its contacts, right? That relationship is something we will need to preserve later, right? So let me show you what I mean by the relationship between company and contacts, right? So let's assume this is a company, right? So every company in your CRM contains the company ID, right? Same thing, every contact in your CRM contains the contact ID, right? So let's assume that I'm working currently and at OpenAI, right? So let's say OpenAI, and let's also create a contact, right? Now this OpenAI will contain their own, you could say, company ID, which looks something like this, right? And this contact will also have their unique contact ID, which looks something like this, right? Now how do we know that Anuj Patel is working at OpenAI, right? So this contact has to be associated with the company OpenAI organization, right? So then there is a another company ID which we call again associated company ID, right? So in this contact there is a property called associated company ID, right? So this Anuj Patel contact has this associated company ID, which tells HubSpot that Anuj Patel is associated with, you could say, OpenAI, right? So this is called associated company ID, right? So when exporting this data, we want to export these company IDs and contact IDs and also the associated company IDs, right? So that we know the relationship between contact and company, right? And a quick note, this process isn't just the, you could say, XCRM specific, like whether you are on HubSpot or Salesforce or any other CRM, the process is almost, you could say, similar, right? So now we have got our, you could say, raw data from the CRM, right? So let's bring this into Clay, right? Now if you're new to Clay, at its simplest, think of it as a, you could say, supercharged spreadsheet, right, that can enrich and research data automatically, right? So now we're going to create a new Clay table and input all of these company records into one table, right? So here is what that data looks like, right? So here I have a company table, right? So on the left side, we have the, you could say, company city, company name, we have the company address, right? This is the company ID, right? So this is a unique ID which we have for each company, right? Then there's a phone number, state, we have zip code, right? Then we have the website, company domain, right? So as you can see, there are few companies that has missing, you could say, websites, right? So we are going to enlist these, you could say, companies and find their valid websites, right? Then there is a industry, ID status, right? Yeah. So the concept I want you to focus on right now is what I call the unified master record, right? So this is one single table that becomes the source of truth for everything, right? Every company in one place before we do, we could say, anything to it, right? Now why is it important to have a unified master table? Because one of the biggest reasons CRMs get messy in the first place is fragmented data, right? The same company lives in five different places with five different versions of the truth, right? So by pulling everything into one, we could say, master table, we are setting up a single clean foundation that we can control, right? So at this stage, the table is basically a mirror of what came out of the CRM, XCRM, right? We have the company name, we have company domain, we have company location and everything, but it is still messy, it is incomplete, right? And that's completely fine, because we are not going to start enriching this whole table, right? That would be a mistake. Instead, we're going to segment this, you could say, records into three different buckets, right? So here is the segmentation framework that I have used. So on the left side, you can see the raw CRM disposition labels that we got from our client, right? Labels like customers current, customers former, right? Then prospect former, prospect current, prospect qualified, incorrect. So these are the inconsistent, you could say, CRM disposition labels that we got, right? But every one of these represents a company sitting in the CRM, right? So our job is to, you could say, collapse all of this that noise into a simple framework that answers one question: where should our enrichment money go first, right? So we sort of, you could say, every CRM label into three buckets: customers, active pipeline, and then the cold prospects, right? So in bucket one, customers, so these are your active revenue accounts, right? The people already paying you. So this bucket is your, could say, highest priority, because we want to retain them and want to understand them very deeply, right? So within this bucket, you have got active ones, you have got dormant, well, you could say, got quiet, right? And then the last one is like you've lost to a competitor and want to win back, right? So this is the first bucket. Then comes bucket two, which is like active pipeline. These are your in progress opportunities, like new inquiries, right? Qualified leads, right? Or the prospect that we have tried your product, or we have took your, we could say, demo of your product, right? Or deals waiting on budget approvals, right? So this is the active pipeline. This bucket is time sensitive because these people are in motion right now, right? So they need accurate data, so nothing stalls, right? Then comes bucket 3, which is cold prospects, right? So this is almost always the biggest bucket, right? Old prospects or future opportunities, right? Prospects who have shown no interest, right? And then prospects which are unqualified, right? This needs the most enrichment work before you can do, you could say, anything with them, but they're also the lowest priority for spend, right? And then there is a fourth group that doesn't get a bucket at all, right? And it gets, you could say, excluded. So the companies that are out of business or that got merged and acquired, right, into another entity. So these are dead companies, right? And this is the whole point of doing this segmentation framework exercise before enrichment, because you do not want to spend a single enrichment credit on a company that no longer exists, right? So yeah, that is the phase one, where we export all the CRM data from a CRM, from any CRM, right? And then we ingest all of this data into a unified master table, right, into Clay, right? And using this segmentation framework, we segment these records into three different buckets, which is customers, active pipeline, and cold prospects, right? So that's phase one. In this next video, I will get into phase two, where we clean, enrich, and validate data, right? Hope you find this video useful. See you in the next one. Bye.